So welcome back, guys. So now that we have understood the longitudinal magnetization, how it develops, and we have also understood the population difference and all. So let us now try to see how an NMR signal is generated. Okay. So let us continue our discussion on bulk magnetic moment and see how it leads to development of NMR signal. So again, when you have multiple spins around in absence of magnetic field, they will assume any random direction, right? These are all individual magnetic moments. So mu1, mu2, mu I with summation of I all over the space, right? Okay, so this is no magnetic field. So in this case, the bulk magnetic moment is 0, right? And when you apply B0 in Z direction, so which is depicted like this, there is a net axis of population which will have spins oriented along the direction of the magnetic field, and this leads to creation of something called as bulk magnetization, which we will represent by vector m. So this is the vector sum of all those individual spins mu1, mu2, mu3 and so on. Okay, so now this situation, and this is in presence of magnetic field, right? So this situation can also be described by energy level diagram, where the alpha beta energy states, which are described by Mi values of -half and +half for a spin half particle, are degenerate. So both alpha and beta have same energy, whereas upon application of the field, the alpha takes the stable stable energy state, and beta states the beta state is the less stable energy state for gamma positive, right? Positive gamma nuclei. Now both these explanations are valid explanations, and you can explain the phenomena by either of the case. Now this is the state of thermal equilibrium, right? This particular state is the thermal equilibrium state, and you can also represent this state in a three-dimensional world coordinate system, where I'm applying B0 along z-axis. So I have a little magnetization which is in excess, right? So M0. So this M0 develops along z-axis the way I have represented here. And if you look at the XY sum of all these magnetic moments, because they are so huge in number and they are all randomly oriented, the XY sum is, so that is the transverse, the magnetization in the transverse plane will turn out to be 0. So if I try to draw the individual projections of all these mu's, they will turn out to be something like this. Okay, so this is all in XY plane. Okay, so XY plane, so that is MXY is equal to 0, whereas MZ is equal to M0. Okay, so that is what is the situation at thermal equilibrium. So this is a stable state. By saying stable state, I mean that this M0 is not precessing about the z-axis. So although individual spins, as soon as they are present in the magnetic field, they will start to precess about the magnetic field. Individual spins are precessing. There is a wandering motion going on, but M0 does not precess. Okay, so let us see mathematically how, and can we explain why M0 is not precessing, although it is very clear that because M0 is present along the z-axis, similar to any mu. So let's say if any single mu is also present along z-axis exactly parallel, it can happen because this all these mu's are present in random orientations. So if a mu is present exactly along the z-axis along the field, it will not precess, right? So for precession, it has to have some angle with b0. We will see why. Similar to a single spin, which is exactly parallel, m0 is also parallel, and thus it will not precess. So let us see mathematically why it does so. So any vector, when it is placed under some sort of a force field, it generates torque, right? So torque can be written as r cross f. It's a cross product between the position vector and the force vector. Okay, and now in this case, the r is given by vector m, and f is force is given by b, and tau is actually let's also say what is tau. So tau can also be written as rate of change of angular momentum, so dl by dt. And here, since we are talking about bulk magnetization and bulk spin angular momentum, so we can call this as dj by dt, where j is the bulk spin angular momentum. So dj by dt, so we can write dj by dt as m cross b. Also similar to the relation which we have learned, that mu is equal to gamma I, the Wigner-Riccard theorem of quantum mechanics. And if you take it to the bulk level, so you can say that m, so this is the single particle or single spin magnetic moment. Here this is the bulk magnetic moment. M is equal to gamma j. Okay, this is the single spin angular momentum. Here it's a bulk spin angular momentum. All right, so if I place this over here, so if I multiply gamma on both sides to equation 1, what do I get? So gamma dj by dt is equal to m cross gamma b, and I can always write this as so this whole thing, gamma can be taken inside because this is a constant, it can go inside the derivative, so I can write this as dm by dt, and this thing is m cross gamma b, right? So gamma can be taken out, and this is m cross b. All right, now let us see what is this cross product. So left hand side is the rate of change of the magnetic moment, so how the magnetic moment is changing in time, and the right hand side is m cross b. So let's see what do I get on left hand side, because we want to see whether the magnetic moment is changing or not. So now if you see, this is m0k. So if you notice that this is only along the z-axis, the x and y components are 0, so that's why only k component or the k vector will survive here. There is no I or j vector here because there is no coefficient to that. Then cross with b0 k. b0 is also along k axis or z axis. There is no magnetic field along the transverse plane in this case, so you will have m0k cross b0k, and because this is k cross k, this whole thing will turn out to be 0. Or if you can also write it as gamma mb sine theta, and k cross k sine theta will be 0, so you can say sine 0 will be 0, so this whole thing will be 0, right? So basically there is no change of magnetic moment with respect to time. This magnetic moment is stable, although we can say that even at this temperature or any magnetic field, the spin wandering motion or alpha to beta transitions or beta to alpha transitions are continuously happening. And if you want to explain in terms of the spin wandering motion, which I explained in lecture 3, so spin wandering motion is also going on. So m0 will keep on changing its value, not exactly value, the magnitude will remain constant, but it will keep on, the transitions between alpha and beta state will keep on going, right? So that will never stop, although it's a equilibrium, but it is not a static state. So there will always be a same excess of population in alpha state as compared to beta state. So P alpha will always be in excess to P beta because of Boltzmann distribution, and that value will remain constant. We have learned that in last class, but the m0 as such, the magnitude and direction is not going to change. So that's what is clear from dm by dt equal to 0, right? So now interestingly, so if you remember Maxwell's equations, so one of the Maxwell's equation which relates the time derivative of magnetic moment to the circulating electric currents, right? I mean, if I remember that correctly, it's dm by dt del cross E, right? So this equation basically tells, we'll not go into details of it, you must have already covered in some course. So this equation basically tells if there is a changing flux of magnetic field lines, there will be a induced current. Let's say if I place a coil around my sample, so let us say that this is my sample tube, and this is the cap, this is my sample inside the magnet, and let's say I have a coil placed around the sample, okay? And now if I connect this to a ampere meter or voltmeter, okay, now if my magnetization, if dm by dt at thermal equilibrium is changing, is not 0, okay, then I would see a deflection in this ammeter, right? Then that means there is a current being induced in the coil because the changing magnetic field lines are cutting through this coil, and that will induce current in this coil, right? But here what we have in case of thermal equilibrium, this is not the case, right? So what we have is dm by dt is equal to 0. That means we cannot, whatever longitudinal magnetization is generated at thermal equilibrium, it cannot be detected by this coil because it can only detect a changing magnetic field, not a static magnetic moment, okay? So we'll write longitudinal magnetic moment or the bulk magnetic moment or m0 or mz, let's say, cannot be detected. So that should be very, very clear now, right? Okay. So now what we can do is we can also play this around, play this m0, mz around by applying some other fields. Okay, let's see what do I mean. So let us draw this again. So you have right-handed coordinate system x, y, z, and I have m0, right? And this is not necessary to draw every time, but let me just draw it. Okay. So now this bulk magnetization can be brought to transverse plane by application of another field, which is oscillating magnetic field orthogonal to B0. So let's say if you are applying in along x-axis a field, let's call it as B1, which is the field which is applied along x-axis. So this is also called as a radio frequency pulse or RF pulse or oscillating magnetic field. Okay, so either way, so So what you're doing is you're applying a radio frequency pulse over here along x-axis, and the consequence of that RF pulse is, so we'll figure out the mechanism later in this course, but let us first look at the consequence, that what happens if you apply B1 along x-axis. So if you apply B1 along x-axis, the magnetization M0 moves down to XY plane, and in this case, because it is in x-axis, the B1 direction is x-axis. We will see later how it goes to minus y-axis. The M0 goes to minus y-axis. Okay. X, Y, Z. All right. So this is what is happening if you apply B1 along x-axis. So in this case, now let's see if my energy level diagram was at this point, it was like this, where P alpha is greater than population in beta state. Here I can explain this as P alpha is equal to P beta. And now you can also imagine that if I take this all the way down, so I can also apply RF pulse long enough so that the magnetize actually goes down, right? So in that case, if the magnetization is down along minus Z axis, then my P alpha will be less than P beta. So this is the case of population inversion. Okay. So we are not doing that, but I'm just telling that you can actually perturb this magnetization down from Z axis to XY plane, or any direction, any random direction, depending on the RF pulse. So as it is a radio frequency pulse, you can change its frequency, you can change its power, you can change its duration, right? And all of these factors depend on where your magnetization will move to. Okay, so here we are choosing a combination of factors, and that is in user's control. So when I'm pulsing, I know that what RF pulse I'm using, what is the power of that pulse, for how long I'm using. So I know precisely that I'm controlling the longitudinal magnetization so precisely that I know that it is moving to exactly 90 degree. Okay, I can move it to exactly 89 degrees or exactly 91 degrees. So in this case, I'm moving to exactly 90 degrees, and then this particular state or this particular magnetization is called as transverse magnetization. Or you can also call it as that now there is a coherence which is created. Either way you can explain. Okay, so coherence is created. What do you mean by the coherence? So let us look at that. So now if you imagine when my transverse magnetization, or when my magnetization is in transverse plane X, Y, Z, all the individual magnetic moments, small mu's, mu1, mu2, mu3, mu4 up to n, all of them have also moved down to XY plane. So same effect of torque. So when you apply a radio frequency pulse, there is a torque which is applied on bulk magnetic moment, and actually the torque is applied on individual spins also by same amount. So if you now see the individual spins are now oriented in this direction, like this, right? And the vector sum of all of this, all these small mu's, will be this m, which is now along minus y axis, right? Now all of them are, and now that you say that my radio frequency pulse is stopped. Okay, so RF stopped, then what happens? Once the RF is stopped, all of them, all these small magnetic moments will start to precess about B0. Now B0 is where? B0 is along z-axis. Now if this starts to precess, all of these start to precess, this will also start to precess. So they will be rotating about B0 or precessing about B0 at Larmor frequency, right? At omega naught. Sorry, let me write it clearly. So all of these will be precessing about B0 at omega naught, and same frequency this will also attain, right? So this bulk magnetic moment will also be precessing at Larmor frequency. So now they are all precessing exactly at same speed. We will also do the mathematically that how this precession actually comes up now because of the effect of magnetic field onto M. We'll see that in a moment. When all of these are precessing, this is also precessing, okay, but all of them are precessing at a constant speed, so this is also precessing at a constant speed, right? So this thing is precessing like this, okay, it keeps on doing. So 500, if we are working at 11 Tesla, so it is precessing at 500 megahertz, right? So 500 megahertz means 500 into 10 to the power 6 rotations per second, right? So that many rotations are happening so fast, but eventually what happens that due to microscopic fluctuations in magnetic field, by these spins, individual spins, some of the spins actually lag behind or they lose their frequency, and some of the spins come forward and they actually gain the frequency. So they increase their omega 0 by a little tiny amount because of this microscopic fluctuation, and some of them lose their frequency. So in that situation what happens, so if I'm, so let me just draw it, the projection in 2D plane. So I'm looking from the top, from this side, so that's why I'm just drawing XY. So now this is my bulk magnetic moment, and individual vectors are like this, right? Let's say the projection along minus y axis. Now all of them are let's draw the rotation as clockwise. So all of them are rotating like this, okay? So at a certain amount of time, let's say all of them have arrived here, and so the bulk magnetic moment, let me draw the bulk with the color so that I can differentiate it. So now bulk is also along minus y axis, right? This is minus x axis. So from minus y, all of them have moved by same angle, but this situation is not there for a long time because of this fluctuations in magnetic field due to magnetic field of individual spins. So what will happen, slowly some spins will point like this, some spins will point like this, some 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 will point like this, right? So that means if I am now taking the vector sum of all of these along x or y direction, it will turn out to be 0. So what I have left with is this entire vector actually loses its magnitude, and there is no net magnetization or there is no net transverse magnetization in this plane, right? So transverse magnetization relaxes to death, right? It dies. So there is to death, and then you can say it is irreversible. So if you now want to create transverse magnetization, you want to actually let it go all the way to thermal equilibrium state and do the experiment all over again to create transverse magnetization. Unless you apply RF pulse again and bring the coherence in order, there would not be a transverse magnetization. So transverse magnetization by this process, this is called as transverse relaxation, relaxes to death irreversibly. Okay. Now this process is also called as coherence going out of phase, or coherence is going no, what am I saying? So coherence is going out of phase. So transverse relaxation or decoherence, both of them are same thing, and in this situation actually there is no change in population. Okay, so I would say if only transverse relaxation is happening, the population of P alpha is still same as population of beta, because we have not yet talked about longitudinal magnetization. Okay, so this is just decoherence. This is just that the phase or the phase of the spins actually goes out of phase, so they don't remain, they don't now precess exactly at same phase or exactly at same omega. Each of them is now precessing about its own omega, which is slightly different than omega 0. Okay, this difference is very small, but then it is still there, and it is significant enough for the signal to actually finish, or for the transverse magnetization to die completely. Okay, now let us now look at it mathematically, that how this spin precession actually takes place. So again, so let us see dm by dt. So we were calculating this torque, which is equal to m gamma m cross b. So now in this case, my m is along m0, let's call it as m0. M is along minus where was my m? Minus y-axis, so that is minus j, right? Cap cross, and if b is still along k-axis, right? That is z-axis. So minus can be taken out, m0 j cross b k, or b0 k. Now j cross k is not 0, right? So j cross k will be I, right? So minus gamma m naught b naught I. So now my magnetization has gone towards I is now minus I. So minus I will be so it was minus j, and now this is minus I. So it has gone to this side. Now if I apply the torque again, this relation again, that m0 cross I, m0 I cross bk, then this will turn out to be this side. And if I apply torque again, it will be like this, and it will be like this. So it will keep on rotating, and till there is a transverse relaxation, so till there is a decoherence or dephasing of all the individual spins, which will lead to death of the transverse magnetization. Until then, it will keep on, the bulk magnetization will keep on moving. So even if this whole thing has relaxed back, the individual spins will keep on precessing because of this torque, which is coming over here, right? Okay, so as I said, the precessional frequency of net magnetic moment is still the Larmor frequency, which is omega 0. And now if we look at the my component of this magnetization. So we can always measure this, right? My component, that whenever it is precessing, what is the projection of this along y-axis. So I can say that this is my m0 cos of omega naught t. This will be the projection along y-axis, and I can draw it like this. It's like a cosine wave. I know it's a very bad drawing. So this is my my, right? And this is time. And this will give me the wavelength, which will be equal to 2 pi by omega naught, right? From here to here. Okay, similarly, x component will be m0 sine omega naught t, right? So this is nothing but a projection of this circulating vector along x-axis or y-axis. So whenever the vector is exactly along y-axis, this will be maxima. When the vector is along y-axis, this will be minus maxima, and then in between it will keep on fluctuating because it is doing a circular motion. We have seen a similar equation for a simple harmonic wave also, right? Okay. So mx is m0 sine omega naught t, and now because there is a relaxation, as we have learned that there is it is not indefinite that this will keep on precessing. There is also a transverse relaxation happening, which I explained just now, that there is a dephasing of all the individual spins. So essentially this whole factor will be multiplied by the relaxation rate, so which will be cos omega naught t, and the decay will be with exponential minus t by t2. Okay, this t2 is nothing but the transverse relaxation time. Okay, so I can say transverse, this is the time taken by a particular bulk magnetic moment to die its own death, right? Transverse relaxation time. Okay. Mx, similarly mx can also be written as cos omega naught t exponential minus t by t2. Sorry, this one will be sine. All right. One can also write T2 is equal to 1 over R2, where R2 is transverse relaxation rate. Instead of time, you can also define this in terms of rate, which is basically the same thing, just that R2 will now come in the numerator. Okay, now this is a I must say that this is a very simplified picture of transverse relaxation, as there are a lot of other processes are also going on simultaneously, which we have not discussed. We have only discussed the transverse relaxation. So let us see, for example, if you have longitudinal relaxation also happening, that is the when the spins are redistributing themselves so that the population is back to normal. So in that case, what is happening? So as soon as the RF pulse is stopped, that is when we are at this stage. So we have brought the magnetization down to XY plane and using RF pulse, and now we are watching it go back. Okay, so at that time the spins are going undergoing dephasing, as well as the spins are moving back to precessing about Z axis, right? So they are also repopulating alpha state, so that the P alpha becomes greater than P beta, right? At this stage, remember that P alpha is equal to P beta, but we want to go back to a stage where P alpha is greater than P beta. So transverse and longitudinal relaxation start simultaneously. The time scales are different, but they do start together. Okay, so now if we want to look at it, what happens if both of them are happening simultaneously? This is my original vector to start with when the RF pulse is stopped. So this vector will keep on decreasing in length, let's say, and this will keep on increasing in length over here. Okay, so M0 is slowly decreasing in length in XY plane and slowly recovering its length or magnitude in Z axis. Okay, how do I show this in a diagram? So this is relaxation. So basically the effect of our overall T1 and T2, that is I should write it as T1 instead of T and L. T1 and T2 relaxation. So this is longitudinal, this is transverse. So this spin will start to rotate in a spiral manner, where slowly it will come out of XY plane and move towards Z axis. Okay, so this will start to happen and it will eventually go back to Z axis. This is the thermal equilibrium state again. So it goes back to thermal equilibrium, but it follows a path, a spiral path like this, because of both transverse as well as. So if there is only a transverse relaxation, what will happen to this vector? It will slowly precess and it will slowly decay within XY plane. If there is only longitudinal relaxation and there is no transverse relaxation, it will slowly go up and to the Z axis. But here both transverse as well as longitudinal relaxations are happening, so it will follow something like this. And we will see how when we actually convert into rotating frame, we'll come back to that. This process actually looks much simpler to understand. Okay, so let's not go into those details as of now, but now the important thing is that when these two processes are happening, the transverse magnetization is relaxing back to thermal equilibrium state via T1 and T2 relaxations. The coil around the sample now, so this was our coil, this was our sample, and this was our coil, which is connected to a, let's say, ammeter. Now the magnetization inside the sample is relaxing back to Z axis. That means there is a finite dm by dt, right? Now because there is a finite dm by dt, there will be a current in the coil. Okay, now that current in the coil will be of the form of the decaying cosine form. Something similar to what we have drawn for my or mx when transverse relaxation was happening, right? Now this is nothing but the current which is induced in the coil because of dm by dt, and now that current is also, it will slowly decay as the magnetization moves back to Z axis, right? So it will slowly decay, and this is called as free induction decay. Or in short, this is called as FID, or in other words, this is the NMR signal. Okay, so this is how you actually generate. We will see how to convert this into a friendly looking NMR spectrum, but this is what we get from NMR spectrometer when we actually record the data. The current which is induced in the coil, and that current is detected uh, uh, by a detector, right? So basically then what we can say that NMR spectrometer essentially does the following. So in summary, what we have learned so far, NMR spectrometer does the following jobs. So first is it lifts the degeneracy of nuclear Zeeman levels and creates bulk magnetization, bulk magnetic moment, we can say, M, right? And second is rotates the spin polarization or the bulk magnetic moment M by RF pulses to any desired angle or plane, right? But typically what we do is we bring it down to transverse plane. In different experiments, actually you can take it down to different levels. We will see if we get time that how we can take it down to in between, also in between X, Y and Z. But okay, so rotates the spin polarization by RF pulses to transverse magnetization. And third is detect the oscillating currents induced in the coil. In the coil. Or we can say by the precessing transverse spin magnetization or magnetic moment. So these are the three things which is done by NMR spectrometer. Rest everything can be put into details, but typically the degeneracy of nuclear Zeeman levels is lifted. That is the alpha beta levels if we are talking about spin half particles. So alpha and beta levels, the degeneracy is lifted, and then we in other words we can say that it creates bulk magnetic moment, rotates the spin polarization or bulk magnetic moment by applying RF pulses to transverse magnetization, and then detect the oscillating currents which are induced in this coil by precessing transverse magnetic moment, right? So if you are able to achieve this, then you can say that okay, you have created a NMR spectrometer. So this is the basic mechanism of how NMR signal is generated. And then now we will see later that the details or the mathematical details of how different experiments are performed, and what are the different things in between the lines of these three steps that what we do to understand different experiments, right? Okay, I think that is all for today. See you in next class.